Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank all the witnesses for being here. And Mr. Turner, thank you for that very powerful opening statement. I think that is the crux of the things that we have to deal with, especially in this city. This is the, you may say, the Oz, the capital of misinformation and disinformation. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Something about the misinformation and disinformation that you spoke of, we hear a lot about it. And it's just not isolated to the states. In fact, President Biden, when he referred to SB 202, the Georgia election law that made it easier to vote and harder to cheat, he said that, if I remember correctly, that it was Jim Crow 2.0. Even the liberal media or left-leaning media here cited that as there was no truth to it whatsoever. How was that taken in Georgia? How devastating was that in our state?
Well, it obviously had an economic impact in Georgia because Major League Baseball, shortly after that, and at the encouragement of President Biden, removed the All-Star game from Atlanta and moved it to Denver. Thousands of average Georgians who were relying on that as an economic opportunity lost out as a result of something that ultimately turned out to be untrue based upon the data that we see today.
Which, as I mentioned, even the media here in Washington, D.C. identified it as being untrue, but it had devastating impact. Do you think that the election integrity reforms that were included in SB 202 helped or hurt voter confidence?
It absolutely has helped. The AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, recently posted a piece about voters returning to the polls. We saw a 740,000 voter drop-off in the runoff for David Perdue versus Ossoff and Warnock versus Kelly Loeffler. And many of those voters had said they'll never vote again. And as a result of SB 202, about a third of them are coming back, but not all of them, so there's still work to do.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like definitely going in the right direction.
Yes,
and serving with you in the General Assembly. I appreciate that. I know that you have a lot of integrity and honesty and adherence to the Constitution. So it sounds like SB 202 had no negative effect on voting in Georgia. And like the Democrats said it would. Now, you said something earlier that I think is very important, is the economic impact that it had on Georgia, and especially our new Truist Park with the Atlanta Braves, which were very proud to host the All-Star game. There were businesses, minority-owned businesses in that area that had spent a significant amount of money preparing for the All-Star game coming. I mean, I talked to business owners who were out. One of them was out $18,000 because he brought in extra food because of the increased business, which no one compensated them for once the All-Star game was removed. And considering the incredibly high voter turnout that you've mentioned, the positive aspect that Senate Bill 202 had, not just on Georgia, but confidence in Georgia's election, do you think that Major League Baseball Commissioner Bob Manfred owes Governor Kemp and the Georgia legislature and those small businesses in Georgia an apology for moving the 2021 All-Star game out of Atlanta?
I absolutely do believe they owe the average Georgian an apology. Governor Kemp would be a start, but to those business owners, frankly. And if President Biden wanted to go back and look at the data and decide to change his mind, I would encourage him to call on Major League Baseball to bring an All-Star game back so that those folks could be made whole. But his words right now have created economic damage to those folks.
And again, it's misinformation and disinformation with a political bias. And that's something that is going to take time to get over with, but I supported what you were doing in the legislature because I think it was going in the right direction, and we've proved that it did. And I'll just close with this question. How do you think that Senate Bill 202 will affect voter turnout in the 2024 presidential election?
I think the evidence is trending pretty positively in that direction, Congressman. The voting experience has been so drastically improved. The shorter lines, the additional options for early voting, people see it as easier to vote. That UGA poll that I mentioned, it said that 74% of the average voter in Georgia thought that SB 202 didn't have a change, and 14.5% said that it actually improved. So you're touching 90% of the folks who have looked at SB 202 as a very positive development.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. My time is expired, so I yield back.